Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Kai. I'm a clinical psychologist from National Cancer Society Malaysia. Thank you for choosing us to be here with us today to learn. And I guess after a long weekday, it's time to relax, unwind, and leave the stress behind. And join us for this relaxations webinar. And before we start, kindly help to click the share button and share this live to your Facebook and let more people to join us. And here with me is my trainee clinical psychologist, Jen Wei, will be the one who speak for this topic and lead you all to practice the box breathing. And if you have any questions, no worries, kindly leave your comment at the in the chat box and we will address at the end. And Jen Wei, the floor is yours.
Uh, Thank you, Kai. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here today for our webinar. My name is Janway, and I'm the trainee clinical psychologist here in NCSM. And I'd like to wish all of you a very good evening. And like what Miss Lee Kai has mentioned, today we'll be talking about box breathing, which is actually one out of the 4 relaxation techniques that we will be going over through this month. And with today's session, we will be talking about what box breathing is, why and who is it useful to, its benefits, and lastly, towards the end, we will be practicing this technique together so that we can try to get a hang of it as well as learn a new skill together. All right, so let's begin. So, what is box breathing? Box breathing is actually a deep breathing technique of slow breathing rhythm that we can generally use before, during, or after stressful situations. It actually acts as a powerful stress relief for any stressful situation, and it just involves 4 simple steps. So, this technique can be beneficial to anyone, especially those who want to reduce their stress or their anxiety. And a great example is me. As of now, I am quite stressed. And prior to this webinar, I have practiced box breathing. And after this, I will be practicing box breathing as well to help me reduce this sense of stress and anxiety. And again, this technique has been used by everyone, such as the Navy SEALs, police officers, athletes, and even nurses. So it goes to show that this technique is easy to do, quick to learn, and can be highly effective in stressful situations. So, why does it work? Well, it actually does distract our mind as we count 4, and it promotes this sense of being present in the moment. So, generally, as humans, we can only focus one thing at a time, and this activity can help us take our mind away from these stressful situations that we are dealing with. When stressed, some of us may engage in hyperventilation. This is when your body is in need of oxygen, so we breathe really quickly. And if you notice, it can be quite uncomfortable at times. So with this technique, with box breathing, it will help bring our breathing pattern back to its relaxed rhythm, thus calming our nervous system and decreasing that stress in our body and our mind. So let's talk a bit about the benefits of box breathing. It actually promotes a variety of benefits to both our psychological and biological well-being. And here on our left side, you actually can see that the studies have shown that the practice of box breathing promoted a reduction in levels of anxiety, depression, and stress. Through long-term practice of this technique, it also can help us change the ways we can react to stress in the future by enabling us to handle and control our reactions much differently. And with more practice, the technique can also help us improve our mood and focus generally over time. So, on the biological aspect, studies have shown that the practice of box breathing can help in the reduction of cortisol, which is a hormone that's somewhat associated with stress. So the technique can regulate our autonomic nervous system, which also controls the involuntary physiological processes such as respiration, the blood pressure, as well as our heart rate. And when you notice when you're stressed, we tend to breathe really quickly. The blood pressure is quite high and the heart rate is beating really quickly as well. So again, these are all very uncomfortable feelings when we are stressed. So practicing this technique may be helpful in lowering these processes during stressful times. Okay, so who does it work for? Now, box breathing is and can be very useful for patients who are awaiting diagnosis or going through any forms of treatment. These individuals, they may be experiencing all sorts of difficulties, such as problematic thoughts or emotions, and these may also lead to mental health disorders such as generalized anxiety disorder, a panic disorder, PTSD, or even depression. Now, these they may be used in a sense, with box breathing, you can use it effectively to deal with these mental health disorders. Okay, this applies for caregivers of cancer patients as well, as they may be experiencing difficulties on their end, such as stress, negative emotions, difficulty sleeping, can be quite useful for them. But most importantly, box breathing is actually applicable to everyone and anyone, as it is easy and quick to learn. Anyone can practice this technique, and it's actually useful in stressful situations when you want to recenter yourself. With that being said, let's talk about the steps for box breathing. So just remember, when we're practicing it later, remember 4, 4, 4, 4. Okay? Now, with the first steps, we have to breathe in for 4 seconds. Then we got to hold it for 4 seconds. Next, we have to breathe out for 4 seconds. And lastly, we will hold it for 4 seconds together. Later on, we will repeat this rounds for about 3 times together when we're practicing, okay? So here are some tips for the beginners. It's a bit long, but see it as a disclaimer, as most of us are quite new to this technique. So if you are new to box breathing, it may be difficult to try to get the hang of it, when you're practicing, and you may feel dizzy or lightheaded. This is actually quite normal, but the more you practice, the more you're able to go longer without feeling the dizziness or the lightheadedness. But if you do get dizzy later, don't worry, just stay seated for a minute and then resume your normal breathing, okay? So take a note that if 4 seconds is too long, you can always adjust it to 2 or 3 seconds for each step. But for the next practice, we will just do it for 4. So here comes the fun part. Let's all practice together, shall we? So here are just a few things to take note. Number 1, try to find a quiet place where you can rest undisturbed. You have to make the environment as tranquil as you can. So if it's too bright, you can try to dim the lights. Okay? Number 3, if you need alone time, let others know. If not, if you would like for family or friends to join you, you invite them as well. That's fine. And lastly, when you're practicing this activity, it's very normal to notice that your mind occasionally wanders off. So just gently bring your focus back to your body whenever you are aware you're thinking about something else. Okay? So let's practice this together, and let's all sit comfortably on our seats with our feet planted on the ground. So if comfortable, you may choose to close your eyes as well. And remember, if you do feel dizzy or lightheaded, you can stop for a moment and resume back to your normal breathing. Okay? So I can't see all of you right now. I assume that you're all seated comfortably with your feet planted. And let's begin one round together, okay? If you're all comfortable, you may choose to close your eyes now. And I will start counting, all right? So breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. All right. So let's loosen up a little. You may shake your hands. Okay. You can move your neck around and you can just breathe normally. I'll just give you a few seconds for all of you to do so. Just move around. And after this, we'll continue with another round. Okay. So we have 2 more rounds after this. All right. So I think that's enough time. Let's try to get another round of this together. Okay. So remember to sit comfortably. Close your eyes if you like, and I'll get ready to start counting down together, okay? So let's do this one more time. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. All right. So same thing like last round, okay? Let's loosen up a little, shake your hands, okay? Move your neck around, you can move your back as well. I want you to breathe normally like you would, and I'll give you all a few seconds to do so. So as you're breathing normally, try to notice what's the difference between now and when you are practicing the activity together, okay? Okay, so now let's just get ready for our last round together. Okay, I'll invite all of you to sit comfortably again and close your eyes if you like. And I will start counting now. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. All right. So let's return back to the session with our normal breathing. Okay. Same thing as always. You can be relaxed. Get back to your normal position. Okay. So that would be the practice of this technique together. If you have any questions or any feedback, please feel free to drop it in the comments and we can address it together during our Q&A session together later. All right. So do take note. Here are just some details of next week's session. If today's session was helpful, please look forward to our next one as we will be doing another breathing technique called the 4-7-8 breathing. It will be on Friday, the 12th of May at 8 p.m. to 8:45. So it's the same as today as well. So please take note that there will also be another webinar on sleep on the 7th of May from 11 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. So this webinar will help us understand our sleep patterns as well as learn new or learn good sleep hygiene or habits to help ourselves deal with any difficulties with sleep. It will be conducted by our very own Ms. Lee Kai and Ms. Eunice, and it will be done in Mandarin. So please feel free to drop by this Sunday. Okay, so remember, the breathing technique is actually not a substitution for seeing a mental health professional. It's something that we all can practice during stressful times. But if at any point you are experiencing difficulties that are beyond your control, please don't hesitate to contact us here at NCSM. Okay, so for our sessions, it is free for cancer patients as well as caregivers of cancer patients. All right. So now it's time for our Q&A session. I would like to invite Ms. Likai back as well, so she can join us for our Q&A to answer some questions together. All right. So if you all are able to, please feel free to drop down any comments, questions, feedback in the comment section.
Let's see, do we have questions? Okay, there's a questions from Facebook. She mentions that I have panic attack and how can box breathing help me?
Okay. That's a good question, actually. With panic attacks, generally it comes from problematic thoughts, negative emotions that come through this spiral where it gets worse and worse, and it actually leads to a panic attack. So, how box breathing works is that as you're practicing that activity, as you're breathing, and as you're focusing on the counting, your mind actually focuses on just that, leaving out those, in a sense, problematic thoughts or negative emotions. Thus, it cuts you from that spiral that actually leads to that panic attack itself. It also is, in a sense, helpful to stop that panic attack at the given moment. But to be honest, when you're panicking and you can't really think to do box breathing at the moment, that's why we would advise that if you're able to, practice box breathing whenever you can, so that when the need arises, it will become more helpful and more smooth as you practice it.
Okay. So hope this answer. Okay, so the next questions from Facebook as well. For the box breathing, is it inhale through nose and exhale through mouth?
Okay. So for that one, Kai, would you like to answer that?
Okay. Yeah. For me, I would say it depends. Some of the people, they are more, they felt like actually sometimes they inhale through nose and exhale through mouth is more suitable for them. It's more comfortable for them. Okay, like for me, whenever I practice any breathing technique, I always inhale through nose and exhale through my mouth because I find it hard to exhale through my nose. So I would say that it really depends on the person. If you really found that exhale through your mouth is more relaxing, then feel free to do that. Yeah, so there's no right or wrong for that. Okay, hope I answer your questions. Okay, there's next question from Facebook as well. When is the best time to do box breathing? When I wake up or when I want to go to sleep? Jeremy, do you want to try it?
Okay, I can try this. So with box breathing, there's no specific time for you to practice it. You can do it before sleep or when you wake up early in the morning. It's generally something that you can do anytime, anywhere, as long as you're comfortable with practicing it, actually. So I hope that answers the question as well.
Okay, so there's a next question. Is there any other way other than the box breathing technique?
So this one is a yes. So with our relaxation techniques, we're actually covering 4 techniques. So with the first one today being box breathing, the next week's webinar, we will be covering on 478 breathing as well, which is another technique. With the other 2 weeks, we will be covering on guided imagery. as well as progressive muscle relaxation. So there are actually four relaxation techniques that we can actually equip in our arsenal. So at any given moment, if one doesn't work, just know that you have more to try along the way.
Okay, so let's see, do we have any other questions? Feel free to ask any questions, not just this sports birthday, any mental health also, we can answer about it.
Mhm.
And okay, there's new questions from Facebook. How many rounds of 444 should I do?
Mhm. So with that, actually, it depends on you. Sometimes practicing the box breathing technique with one round may work for some, immediately to reduce that stress, the anxiety. Some, it may take a few minutes. So it actually does depend on you, on how comfortable, on how long you want to practice that technique. So it's actually up to you whether it works for you. But usually the recommendation is if you can practice maybe a minute to 5 minutes to 10 minutes, it's actually fine. There's no specific rounds for us to practice.
Okay, next questions from Facebook as well. Is box breathing suitable for all ages? Is there a different technique for the young and old? Okay, I would say box breathing is suitable for all ages, even for children, for adult, for elderly, for cancer patients, caregiver, uh, regardless of all age, also is quite suitable to use this box breathing. And if there a different technique for the young and old? Of course, there's a lot, but because this box breathing not necessarily apply to all, so but I would suggest that whenever you feel anxious, whenever you feel like depressed, anxious, worry, and fear, or maybe afraid, try to use this technique to calm yourself down first. Of course, in mental health, in psychological sessions, we have a lot of different technique for the young and for the old and for the elderly, but still, this need to be trained by a mental health professional. Okay, so don't try your own. If you found it difficult to try it by yourself, then it's time to seek help from the mental health professional. Okay. And next questions. Hi, thanks for this. I practice emotional freedom technique, EFT, to be in the now and clear anxiety. Any comment in comparison? EFT, emotional freedom technique. Okay, you would like to try, Jimmy?
I'm actually not too knowledgeable in EFT, actually.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, emotional freedom technique is more like focusing on your emotional aspect, and you learn how to mastering your emotion, and learn how to be more regulate on your own emotions. So that's why you mentions that to be in the now, focus at the present moment, right, and clear anxiety. So I wouldn't say in comparison. Okay, box breathing is more to help you to calm yourself down. Okay, it's also almost same like this emotional freedom technique to be in the now, meaning to focus at the present moment. Okay, but actually from the emotional freedom technique, there's a lot more theory behind this technique, in not just box breathing itself, because box breathing is just the specific technique to tackle the anxious. Okay, but the emotional freedom technique is not just teaching about focus at the present moment. It also teach you how to identify your emotion, label your emotions, and master how to regulate your emotions. So I would say the similarity would be both of them are focused at the present moment. Okay, but the differences is box breathing, it just help to calm yourself down, being peaceful, make you able to sleep and all that. Okay, calm the anxiousness. But the emotional freedom technique is more about a technique, it's more about a strategy, it's more a lot of more theory, not just focus about the now, but also focus about to identify your emotions. Yeah, so hope I answer your questions.
That's really interesting. I'm going to give EFT a read after this as well.
Yeah, very interesting actually.
Yeah.
Okay, next questions. After mastering it, it will multiples of 4 counts helps. Example, 8 counts instead of 4. Okay.
Mm.
Wait. Let me. Will multiple of 4 counts help? 8 counts.
Also, meaning I assume it's like 8 seconds each step.
You breathe
Right.
in for 8.
For
Is
8
it?
seconds, you hold it for 8
Oh.
seconds, and then you breathe out for 8 seconds, and then it repeats, so on and so on. That's a good question, actually. Usually, I think the set one is 4 seconds because I think if you hold it for too long, or breathe out for too long, or breathe in for too long, will the effects be the same? What are your thoughts on this, Kai?
Mm, 8 counts. I would say that 8 counts were a bit too long because sometimes
Mhm,
when we breathe in slow, we're hard
mhm.
to reach 8 counts. But some of the
Right.
people, if they have the
Might
stamina,
be
they can do
able
that.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
perhaps,
I was.
I would say give it a try. I don't think there's any
Mm,
harm doing so, but of course you got to be safe as well with what you're practicing. If you're able
mhm.
to, by all means, I think it should be fine.
Yeah. I see. Is there any questions? I guess we don't have any questions, right? So
Mhm.
maybe Janely, you can do a recap for today's
Okay.
sessions.
Okay. Can.
Mm,
All right. So I think with today's webinar, we actually talk a lot about what box breathing is, as well as its benefits. I really want to thank you all for your questions as well. Just remember that this technique can be practiced anytime and anywhere. There is no, how do I say this? There's no specific time for you to actually practice this. And with today's practice, just remember it's important that you are able to practice this whenever you can, and if possible, pass this technique down to anyone who you think can benefit from this. And if you all had fun today, please feel free to share this link to your friends, your family, so that they can join our webinar session next week onwards. Okay? So with that being said, I believe this concludes our session today. Thank you all for coming, and I wish you all a very good night and see you all next week. All right.